Maria stood in the middle of the enormous bedroom, her hands shaking as she held the silver tray. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might jump out of her chest. "Please, Mr. Harrison," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please stop. I can't do this anymore." The tall man in the expensive suit looked at her with cold, dark eyes. His face showed no emotion. He didn't care about her tears or her fear. "You will do it, Maria," he said quietly, but his voice was like ice. "You will do it every single night, just like I told you. And you will not refuse me." Maria's legs felt weak. She wanted to run away, but her feet wouldn't move. The heavy door behind her was locked. She was trapped. Mr. Harrison took a step closer to her. His shadow fell over her small body like a dark cloud. "But sir," Maria said, her voice shaking even more, "this is wrong. What you're making me do. It's not right. Please, I'm begging you." He smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knew he had all the power. "Wrong?" he said with a small laugh. "Maria, you work for me. You live in my house. You eat my food. You wear the clothes I provide. Everything you have is because of me." He reached out his hand toward her, and Maria closed her eyes tight, waiting for what would happen next. Where are you watching this from? Comment your country below, and if you want to know what happens next, keep watching. Because what Mr. Harrison makes her do every night is something no one could ever imagine. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. 3 months earlier, Maria was a completely different person. She was happy. She had hope. She believed that good things could happen to good people. Maria was 23 years old. She had long, dark hair that she always tied in a simple ponytail. Her brown eyes were warm and kind. She had a beautiful smile, even though she didn't smile as much anymore. Maria lived in a tiny apartment in the poor part of the city. The apartment was so small that her bed, her kitchen, and her bathroom were all in one room. The walls were cracked. Sometimes water leaked from the ceiling when it rained. But it was her home, and she worked hard to pay for it. Maria worked 3 jobs. In the morning, she cleaned offices in tall buildings downtown. In the afternoon, she served food at a small restaurant. At night, she washed dishes at another restaurant until very late. She was always tired. Her hands were red and rough from cleaning chemicals and hot water. Her feet hurt from standing all day. But she never complained. Why did Maria work so hard? Because of her little brother, Carlos. Carlos was 16 years old. He was smart, very, very smart. He was the best student in his school. All his teachers said he could go to university and become a doctor or an engineer. But university cost a lot of money. Money that Maria and Carlos didn't have. Their parents had died in a car accident 5 years ago. Since then, Maria had taken care of Carlos all by herself. She was more than his sister. She was his mother, his father, and his best friend. Every penny Maria earned went to 2 things: keeping them alive and saving for Carlos's university. She didn't buy new clothes for herself. She didn't go out with friends. She didn't even buy coffee or snacks. Every single coin went into a small metal box she kept hidden under her bed. One day, she would tell Carlos with a tired smile, "You're going to be somebody important. You're going to have a big office and wear a nice suit. And you're going to help people. That's why I work so hard." Carlos would hug her and say, "Maria, when I'm successful, I'm going to take care of you. I promise." But promises don't pay bills. One terrible day, everything fell apart. Maria got sick. She had a fever and couldn't stop coughing. But she couldn't afford to see a doctor. She couldn't afford to miss work either. So she kept working. One morning, while she was cleaning an office, she fainted. She fell down and hit her head on the floor. When she woke up, she was in a hospital bed. A nurse told her she had pneumonia, a serious lung infection. The doctor said she needed to rest for at least 2 weeks. But 2 weeks without working meant no money. Even worse, the hospital bill was very expensive. They wanted $3,000. $3,000 that Maria didn't have. The hospital let her leave, but they said she had to pay within 30 days or they would take legal action against her. Maria went home feeling more scared than she had ever felt in her life. That night, she opened her metal box and counted all the money she had saved for Carlos's university. $2,800. It had taken her 4 years to save that money. 4 years of working 3 jobs, eating cheap food, and never buying anything for herself. And now, all of it would go to the hospital bill, and it still wouldn't be enough. Maria sat on her bed and cried. She cried so hard that her whole body shook. Carlos heard her crying and came into the room. "Maria? What's wrong?" he asked, his young face full of worry. "Nothing," Maria lied, quickly wiping her tears. "I'm just tired." But Carlos wasn't stupid. He saw the hospital papers on the bed. He saw the open metal box with the money. "You're sick because you work too much," Carlos said quietly. "You're killing yourself for me." "Don't say that," Maria said firmly. "Everything I do because I love you. You're going to have a better life than this, Carlos. I promise." But inside, Maria felt hopeless. How could she promise him anything when she couldn't even take care of herself? The next morning, Maria saw something that would change her life forever. She was walking past a very fancy neighborhood, the kind where rich people lived in huge houses with big gates and perfect gardens. On one of the gates, there was a sign, "Maid wanted, must live in the house. Salary, $3,000 per month. Call this number." Maria stopped walking. She read the sign 3 times to make sure she wasn't imagining it. $3,000 a month? That was more than she made from all her 3 jobs combined. But there was a problem. The job required her to live in the house. That meant she would have to leave Carlos alone in their apartment. Maria's heart felt heavy. She didn't want to leave her brother. But what choice did she have? If she took this job, she could pay the hospital bill. She could save money faster for Carlos's university. She could give him the future he deserved. With shaking hands, Maria took out her old phone and called the number. A woman answered. Her voice sounded cold and professional. "Harrison Residence. Who is calling?" "Hello," Maria said nervously. "I'm calling about the maid job. Can you start tomorrow?" The woman interrupted. "Tomorrow," Maria said, surprised. "Don't you want to interview me first?" "Mr. Harrison needs someone immediately," the woman said. "If you can start tomorrow, the job is yours. If not, I have many other people calling." Maria's mind raced. This was happening so fast. I can start tomorrow," Maria heard herself say. "Good. Come to this address at 8 a.m. sharp. Bring your things. You'll be living here from now on." The woman hung up before Maria could ask any more questions. That night, Maria packed her few belongings in a small bag. She sat Carlos down and explained everything to him. "It's only temporary," she promised him. "I'll save money quickly, and then I'll find a job where I can come home every night." Carlos tried to be brave, but Maria could see tears in his eyes. "I'll be okay," he said, even though his voice shook. "You do what you need to do, Maria. I'll take care of myself." They hugged each other tightly. Neither of them knew that this decision would lead to the most terrifying experience of Maria's life. The next morning, Maria stood in front of the biggest house she had ever seen. It wasn't just a house. It was a mansion, 3 stories tall, with white pillars and huge windows that sparkled in the sunlight. The garden was so big and perfect it looked like a painting. Maria felt very small and very poor standing there in her old clothes with her cheap bag. She rang the doorbell. The sound echoed inside the huge house. A woman in a black uniform opened the door. She looked Maria up and down with cold eyes, like she was examining a piece of furniture. "You must be the new maid," the woman said. "I'm Mrs. Chun, the head housekeeper. Follow me." Maria followed Mrs. Chun into the house. Her mouth fell open. Inside was even more beautiful than outside. The floors were made of shiny marble. There were paintings on the walls that looked like they belonged in museums. Everything was clean and perfect and expensive. "Mr. Harrison is very particular about his home," Mrs. Chun said as they walked. "Everything must be perfect at all times. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am," Maria said quietly. "You will clean the entire house every day. You will prepare Mr. Harrison's meals. You will do his laundry. You will do whatever he asks whenever he asks. Is that clear? Yes, ma'am. Mrs. Chun stopped and turned to look at Maria with a strange expression. One more thing, she said slowly. Mr. Harrison has special requests. Things that might seem unusual to you, but you must do them. No questions. No complaints. If you refuse, you will be fired immediately. A cold feeling crept up Maria's spine. What kind of special requests? Maria asked. Mrs. Chen's face became blank, like a mask. You'll find out soon enough, she said. Now come, I'll show you your room. Maria's room was tiny, much smaller than even her old apartment. It had a narrow bed, a small closet, and one window that looked out at the garden. But Maria didn't care about the room. She was thinking about what Mrs. Chun had said. Special requests. No questions. No complaints. What did that mean? Rest for a few hours, Mrs. Chun said. Mr. Harrison will return home at 6 p.m. You will meet him then. Then she left, closing the door behind her. Maria sat on the bed, her heart beating fast. Something felt wrong about this place. Very wrong. But she needed the money. She had no choice. At exactly 6 p.m., Maria heard a car pull up outside. She heard a door slam. She heard footsteps. Heavy, slow footsteps walking through the house. Mrs. Chun knocked on Maria's door. He's here, she said. Come meet Mr. Harrison. Maria followed Mrs. Chun down the stairs to a huge living room. And there he was, Mr. Alexander Harrison. He was tall, at least 6 feet. He wore an expensive black suit that probably cost more than Maria would earn in a year. His hair was dark and perfectly styled. His face was handsome but cold. So cold. But it was his eyes that scared Maria the most. They were dark, almost black. And when he looked at her, it felt like he was looking right through her. Like she was nothing. Like she was just an object. This is Maria, sir, Mrs. Chun said. Your new maid. Mr. Harrison didn't smile. He didn't say hello. He just stared at Maria for a long, uncomfortable moment. How old are you? He finally asked. His voice was deep and quiet. 23, sir, Maria said, her voice barely above a whisper. Why do you need this job? I need to pay my hospital bill, sir. And I'm saving money for my brother's university. Mr. Harrison raised one eyebrow. So you're desperate, he said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Maria didn't know what to say to that. Good, Mr. Harrison said, turning away from her. Desperate people work harder. You start tonight. Tonight, sir? Maria asked, confused. But it's already evening. Mr. Harrison turned back to look at her. His cold eyes seemed to pierce right through her. Did I stutter? He said quietly. I said you start tonight. Mrs. Chun will tell you what to do. Then he walked away, his footsteps echoing through the huge house. Maria stood there, feeling a terrible sense of fear growing in her chest. What had she gotten herself into? That night, Mrs. Chun gave Maria her first task. Every night at 9 p.m., you must prepare Mr. Harrison's study, Mrs. Chun said. The room must be perfect. Every book must be straight. Every surface must be dust-free. And then, Mrs. Chun paused, and that strange look came over her face again. Then you must bring him his evening tea. You will knock 3 times. You will enter when he says so. You will place the tea on his desk. You will not speak unless he speaks to you first. And you will do exactly what he tells you to do. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am, Maria said, even though her stomach felt sick. At exactly 9 p.m., Maria carried a silver tray with a teapot and cup up to Mr. Harrison's study. Her hands were shaking so badly that the cup rattled against the tray. She stood outside the large wooden door. She took a deep breath. Then she knocked 3 times. Come in, Mr. Harrison's voice said from inside. Maria opened the door. The study was huge and dark. There were bookshelves covering every wall, filled with old books. A large desk sat in the middle of the room. Mr. Harrison sat behind it, reading papers by the light of a single lamp. Your tea, sir, Maria said quietly, walking toward the desk. She placed the tray down carefully, trying not to make noise. "Pour it," Mr. Harrison said without looking up. Maria's hands shook as she poured the tea into the cup. A little bit spilled onto the saucer. Mr. Harrison looked up, his dark eyes fixed on the spilled tea. "You made a mess," he said quietly. "I'm sorry, sir, Clean it," he interrupted. "Yes, sir." Maria quickly took a cloth from her pocket and wiped up the spilled tea. "Not good enough," Mr. Harrison said. "Do it again. Pour the tea again. Perfectly this time." Maria poured out the tea and filled the cup again. This time, her hands shook even more because she was so nervous. Another drop spilled. "Again," Mr. Harrison said, his voice still quiet but somehow more frightening because it was so calm. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She poured the tea a third time. Another drop spilled. "Do you know why I'm making you do this?" Mr. Harrison asked, leaning back in his chair. "And no, sir," Maria whispered. "Because I can," he said simply. "Because you work for me. Because you need this job. And because I want to see how far you'll go before you break." Maria felt tears running down her cheeks, but she didn't dare wipe them away. "Pour it again," Mr. Harrison said. Maria poured the tea again, and again, and again, 15 times. 15 times she poured that tea, with Mr. Harrison watching her with those cold, dark eyes. Finally, on the 15th try, not a single drop spilled. "Good," Mr. Harrison said. "See? You can do it when you try hard enough. Now you may leave." Maria picked up the tray with shaking hands and walked quickly toward the door. "Oh, and Maria?" Mr. Harrison called out just as she reached the door. She turned around. "Tomorrow night we'll do this again," he said with that cold smile. "And every night after that. I hope you understand that this is just the beginning. There's so much more I'm going to make you do." Maria ran out of the room. She ran to her tiny bedroom. She closed the door and cried into her pillow so no one would hear her. What kind of monster was Mr. Harrison? Why was he doing this to her? And the worst part was, she couldn't quit. She couldn't leave. She needed the money too badly. She was trapped. The next few weeks were a nightmare. Every single night, Mr. Harrison made Maria do the same thing. Pour the tea. Clean the study. Stand there while he watched her with those cold eyes. But it wasn't just the tea anymore. Every night, the tasks got stranger. More difficult. More humiliating. One night, he made her reorganize his entire bookshelf, thousands of books, in alphabetical order. Took her until 3 a.m. When she finished, he looked at it and said, "Wrong. Do it again by publication date." Another night, he made her polish every piece of silver in the house. Spoons, forks, knives, trays, decorations. Her hands bled from scrubbing so hard. When she showed him, he said, "I don't care about your hands. I care about my silver. Finish the job." Another night, he made her stand in the corner of his study for 2 hours without moving while he worked. Just stand there, like a statue, like she was nothing. Maria lost weight. She couldn't sleep. She cried every night. She called Carlos once a week to check on him. She always pretended everything was fine. She didn't want him to worry. But Carlos knew something was wrong. "Maria, you sound different," he said during one call. "Are you okay? Is your boss treating you well?" "Everything is fine," Maria lied. "I'm just tired, but I'm making good money. Soon I'll have enough saved for your university." "I don't care about university if you're suffering," Carlos said, his voice full of emotion. "Come home, Maria. We'll find another way." "No," Maria said firmly. "I'm not giving up. Just a few more months and everything will be better. I promise." But she didn't believe her own words anymore. One night, the night that would change everything, Maria stood in Mr. Harrison's study with the silver tray. But this time something was different. Mr. Harrison stood up from his desk and walked over to a large safe in the corner of the room. He opened it and took out a small black box. "Do you know what this is, Maria?" he asked, holding up the box. "No, sir," Maria said quietly. He opened the box. Inside was a beautiful diamond necklace. It sparkled even in the dim light of the study. "This necklace is worth $2 million, Mr. Harrison said. "It belonged to my mother." He closed the box and held it out to Maria. "Take it," he said. Maria stared at him, confused. "Sir, I said take it," he repeated. With shaking hands, Maria took the box. "Now," Mr. Harrison said, walking back to his desk and sitting down, "I want you to put that necklace on." "But sir, did I ask for your opinion?" Mr. Harrison said coldly. "Put on." Maria's hands trembled as she opened the box and took out the necklace. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever touched. She put it around her neck. It felt heavy and cold against her skin. "Good," Mr. Harrison said, staring at her. "Now I want you to wear it every night when you bring me my tea." "Every night, sir?" Maria asked, shocked. "Every single night," he said slowly. "And if anything happens to that necklace, if you lose it, if you damage it, if even one diamond falls out, you will pay me back $2 million. Maria felt like she couldn't breathe. $2 million. She didn't have $2 million. She didn't even have $3,000. "But sir," she said, her voice shaking, "what if something happens to it by accident? What if? Then you'll be in debt to me for the rest of your life," Mr. Harrison said with that terrible smile. "You and your precious little brother will both be working for me until you pay back every single penny." He stood up and walked toward her. Maria wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. "Do you know why I'm doing this, Maria?" he asked, standing very close to her. "Because I want you to understand something very important." He reached out and touched the necklace around her neck. "You belong to me now," he whispered. "Your life is in my hands. I can make you rich, or I can destroy you. It all depends on how well you obey me." Maria's whole body was shaking. Tears streamed down her face. "Please," she whispered. "Please, Mr. Harrison. Why are you doing this to me? What did I do to deserve this?" Mr. Harrison stepped back and looked at her with those cold, emotionless eyes. "You did nothing," he said. "You're just unlucky. You needed money, and I needed someone to entertain me." "Entertain you?" Maria said, her voice breaking. "I'm not your toy. I'm a human being." "Are you?" Mr. Harrison said, tilting his head. "Because from where I stand, you're just another servant. Another desperate, poor girl who will do anything I say because you have no other choice." He walked back to his desk and sat down. "Now get out," he said, picking up his papers again. "And remember, tomorrow night you'll wear that necklace again. And the night after that. And every night until I tell you to stop." Maria stood there for a moment, the heavy necklace around her neck feeling like a chain. Then she ran. She ran to her room, tore off the necklace, and put it carefully back in its box. Then she collapsed on her bed and cried harder than she had ever cried in her life. This wasn't just a job anymore. This was torture. Mr. Harrison wasn't just a boss. He was a monster, and Maria was his prisoner. Weeks passed. The same nightmare every single night. Put on the necklace. Bring the tea. Do whatever humiliating task Mr. Harrison invented. Maria felt herself breaking. She was losing her mind. She stopped eating. She stopped sleeping. Her hands shook all the time. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw a ghost. A shadow of the person she used to be. Mrs. Chin noticed but said nothing. The other servants whispered about her but stayed away. Everyone in that house knew what was happening, but no one helped her, because they were all afraid of Mr. Harrison too. One night, Maria finally reached her breaking point. It was the night that started this story, the night you saw at the beginning. Maria stood in Mr. Harrison's bedroom. He had started making her bring tea there instead of the study. She wore the necklace. She held the silver tray, and something inside her finally snapped. "Please, Mr. Harrison," she said, her voice breaking. "Please stop. I can't do this anymore." Mr. Harrison looked at her with those cold eyes. "You will do it, Maria," he said quietly. "You will do it every single night just like I told you. And you will not refuse me." Maria's legs felt weak. The heavy door behind her was locked. She was trapped. "But sir," Maria said, her whole body shaking. This is wrong. What you're making me do. It's not right. Please, I'm begging you. He smiled that cruel smile. Wrong? He said. Maria, you work for me. You live in my house. You eat my food. You wear the clothes I provide. Everything you have is because of me. He reached out his hand toward her. And then something incredible happened. Maria didn't close her eyes this time. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. Instead, she looked Mr. Harrison straight in the eyes and said two words she had never said to him before. No. More. Mr. Harrison's hand stopped in mid-air. His eyes widened slightly. For the first time since Maria had met him, he looked surprised. What did you say? He asked slowly. I said no more, Maria repeated, and this time her voice was stronger. I'm done. I quit. She took off the necklace and placed it on the tray. Then she put the tray down on a table. You can keep your necklace. You can keep your money. You can keep your mansion and your cruelty. I'm leaving. Mr. Harrison stared at her for a long moment. Then he started to laugh. It was a cold, dark laugh that made Maria's skin crawl. You can't leave, he said. You signed a contract. If you break it, you have to pay me a penalty of $50,000. Do you have $50,000, Maria? Maria's heart sank. She had forgotten about the contract. I don't. She stammered. No, you don't, Mr. Harrison said, his smile growing wider. So you see, you can't leave. You're stuck here. With me. Forever. He took a step closer to her. And now that you've tried to defy me, I'm going to make your life even worse, he said softly. Every night will be a nightmare. I'm going to break you completely until you're nothing but. That won't be necessary, a voice said from the doorway. Both Maria and Mr. Harrison turned around in shock. Standing in the doorway was an older man in an expensive suit. He had gray hair and kind eyes. Behind him stood two security guards. Father, Mr. Harrison said, and for the first time, Maria heard something like fear in his voice. Alexander, the older man said, walking into the room. We need to talk. Now. The room fell completely silent. Maria stood frozen, her heart pounding like a drum. Who was this man? And why did Mr. Harrison look so scared? The older man walked slowly into the bedroom. He looked at Maria with kind eyes that were so different from Mr. Harrison's cold stare. Young lady, he said gently, would you please wait outside for a moment? I need to speak with my son privately. Your son, Maria whispered. Yes, the man said. I am Richard Harrison, Alexander's father, and I apologize for what my son has put you through. Maria felt tears filling her eyes. Someone finally believed her. Someone finally cared. Go on, Richard said softly. Wait in the hallway. I promise you, everything will be okay. Maria nodded and quickly walked toward the door. As she passed by Mr. Harrison, she saw something she had never seen before. He looked small, afraid, like a little boy caught doing something very, very bad. Maria stepped into the hallway, and one of the security guards gently closed the door behind her. But the door didn't close all the way. There was a small gap. Maria knew she shouldn't listen, but she couldn't help herself. She pressed her ear close to the gap and heard everything. What are you doing here, father? Alexander's voice was shaking. I thought you were in Europe. I was, Richard said, and his voice was cold with anger. Until I received a very interesting phone call. Do you know who called me, Alexander? Silence. It was Mrs. Chun, Richard continued. Your head housekeeper. The woman who has worked for our family for 30 years. She called me crying Alexander. Crying. Do you know why? I don't know what she told you. But she told me everything. Richard's voice rose like thunder. She told me how you've been torturing that poor girl, making her do humiliating tasks every night, threatening her with a necklace worth millions, keeping her prisoner in this house. She's just a maid, Alexander said weakly. I was just what? Richard shouted. Just being cruel? Just being a monster? Just becoming exactly like your mother. Maria heard something crash, like a glass being thrown against a wall. Don't you dare compare me to her, Alexander said, his voice full of rage. Why not? Richard said. You're doing exactly what she did. Your mother tortured servants for fun too. Remember? She thought it was entertaining to watch people suffer. She thought having money and power gave her the right to treat people like toys. That's not. She was sick, Alexander. Richard's voice cracked with emotion. Your mother was a cruel, sick woman, and I hoped, that you would be different, that you wouldn't inherit her twisted mind. But I was wrong. Maria heard footsteps pacing back and forth. After your mother died, Richard continued, his voice quieter now, I sent you to the best therapists, the best schools. I tried so hard to make sure you grew up to be a good man, kind man, but clearly I failed. You don't understand, Alexander said, and Maria was shocked to hear his voice breaking. Every time I see a servant, every time I see someone weak and desperate, I see her, I see Mother, and I can't help myself. I need to have control. I need to prove that I'm not weak like they are. So you became her instead, Richard said sadly. You became the bully, the monster. There was a long silence. Then Richard spoke again, and his voice was firm and cold. You're done, Alexander, he said. I'm removing you as CEO of the company. What? Alexander's voice was filled with shock and rage. You can't do that. I've worked for that position for 10 years. And you've abused your power for just as long, Richard said. I've been getting reports for years, Alexander. Employees who quit suddenly. Assistants who left in tears. People who signed NDAs and took money to stay quiet about how you treated them. I ignored it. I told myself it was just business. But this is too far. Father, please. I'm giving the CEO position to your cousin James, Richard continued. And you're going to check yourself into a psychiatric facility. You need help, son. Real help. Before you destroy yourself completely. I won't do it, Alexander said, his voice full of defiance. You can't make me. Oh, I can, Richard said calmly. Because if you don't do exactly what I say, I will tell the police everything. I will show them evidence of what you've done. I will press charges for unlawful imprisonment, emotional abuse, and harassment. You will go to prison, Alexander. And trust me, you won't like what happens to rich boys in prison. Another long silence. Fine, Alexander finally said, his voice barely a whisper. I'll go. Good, Richard said. You leave tomorrow morning. The facility is in Switzerland. You'll stay there for at least 6 months. Maybe longer. Then Maria heard Richard's footsteps walking toward the door. She quickly stepped back, pretending she hadn't been listening. Richard opened the door and looked at her with those kind, sad eyes. Miss Maria, he said gently, would you come with me, please? We have much to discuss. Richard took Maria to a beautiful sitting room downstairs. He asked a servant to bring tea and cookies. Maria sat on the edge of a soft chair, still shaking. She couldn't believe what was happening. First, Richard said, sitting across from her, I want to apologize. On behalf of my family, I am so sorry for what my son put you through. What he did was unforgivable. Thank you, sir, Maria said quietly. Second, Richard continued, I want you to know that you are free to leave whenever you wish. The contract you signed is void. You owe us nothing. Maria felt a huge weight lift off her chest. She was free, finally free. However, Richard said, leaning forward, before you go, I would like to offer you something. He pulled out a checkbook and began writing. I know you took this job because you needed money, he said as he wrote. Mrs. Chun told me about your hospital bills and your brother's university fund. He tore out the check and handed it to Maria. Maria looked at the check and gasped. It was for $100,000. Sir, I can't accept this, Maria stammered. It's too much. I didn't earn this. Yes, you did, Richard said firmly. You survived 3 months of torture from my son. You kept your dignity and your strength even when he tried to break you. You deserve this money and much more. Tears streamed down Maria's face. This will pay your hospital bills, your brother's university, and give you enough to start a new life, Richard said kindly. Take it, please. Maria looked at the check in her trembling hands. This was more money than she had ever dreamed of having. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. There's one more thing, Richard said. I own many companies. If you want a job, a real job where you're treated with respect, I can arrange that. You could work in one of our offices. We'll train you, pay you well, help you build a career. Maria couldn't believe what she was hearing. This was like a dream. I would love that, sir, she said, wiping her tears. But I'm not educated. I only finished high school. Education can be learned, Richard said with a warm smile. Kindness and strength like yours cannot. You'll do wonderfully. The next morning, Maria packed her small bag. She put on her old clothes, the ones she had worn when she first arrived at this terrible mansion. She walked through the house one last time, looking at all the beautiful things that had been her prison. As she walked toward the front door, she saw Alexander coming down the stairs with suitcases. 2 men in suits were with him, probably people from the psychiatric facility. Alexander saw Maria. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Maria saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Shame, regret, maybe even a tiny bit of humanity. Maria, he said quietly. I'm sorry. Maria was surprised. She never thought she would hear those words from him. She could have said many things. She could have yelled at him, cursed him, told him how much he had hurt her. But instead, she just said, I hope you get better, Mr. Harrison. I hope you learn to be kind. Then she walked out the door and didn't look back. Maria sat at a desk in a bright, modern office. She wore a nice business suit. Her hair was styled professionally. She was typing on a computer, working on a marketing report. Around her, other office workers chatted and laughed. Her boss had just praised her work. Her co-workers invited her to lunch. This was her new life. A good life. She had paid all her hospital bills. Carlos was now in university studying engineering and getting top grades. They had moved to a nicer apartment in a safe neighborhood. Every night, Maria went home to have dinner with her brother. They were happy. Really, truly happy. Maria still had nightmares sometimes about that mansion. About Mr. Harrison's cold eyes. About the heavy necklace around her neck. But when she woke up from those nightmares, she reminded herself, that life is over. I'm free now. I'm safe. One day, Maria received a letter at her office. It had no return address. Inside was a short note written in shaky handwriting. Dear Maria, I am writing to you from Switzerland. The doctors here are helping me understand why I became the person I was. They say I have deep psychological issues from my childhood. I'm working on getting better. I know my apology means nothing. I know I can never undo the pain I caused you. But I want you to know that seeing your strength, the way you stood up to me that last night, it changed something in me. You showed me that not everyone breaks. That some people are truly strong, not because they have power or money, but because they have courage and goodness inside them. I hope you're living a good life now. You deserve it. I'm sorry. Alexander Harrison. Maria read the letter twice. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her desk drawer. She didn't write back. She didn't need to. That chapter of her life was closed. But there was one more secret. One final truth that Maria discovered months later. Richard Harrison came to visit her at the office one day. He took her out for coffee and told her something shocking. Maria, he said, I need to tell you the real reason I came to the mansion that night. I thought Mrs. Chun called you, Maria said. She did, Richard nodded. But there's more to the story. You see, Alexander wasn't just tormenting you. Over the years, he had done the same thing to dozens of other servants. But they all took money and signed agreements to stay quiet. Maria felt sick. Dozens of people had suffered just like her. Mrs. Chun called me because you were different, Richard continued. You never asked for money to stay quiet. You never threatened to go to the press. You just endured. And when you finally stood up to Alexander, when you quit even though you knew it would cost you everything, Mrs. Chun knew you were special. Richard took a sip of his coffee. The truth is, Maria, I had been looking for someone like you for a long time, he said. Someone with real integrity. Someone who couldn't be bought or broken. Someone who would do the right thing even when it cost them everything. Why? Maria asked, confused. Richard smiled. Because I'm getting old, Maria. I need someone to eventually take over my charitable foundation. Someone who truly understands what it means to suffer, to struggle, to be powerless. Someone who will use money and power to help people, not hurt them. Maria's eyes went wide. Sir, you can't mean. I'm not offering you the job yet, Richard said with a laugh. You're still young. You need more experience, more education. But I'm watching you, Maria. I'm investing in you. And someday, when you're ready, I believe you'll do amazing things. Maria didn't know what to say. She just sat there, tears of gratitude running down her face. The suffering you went through wasn't meaningless, Richard said gently. It taught you empathy. It taught you strength. It taught you that you're stronger than any monster who tries to break you. And now you can use those lessons to help other people who are suffering. 2 years later, Maria stood in front of a mirror, adjusting her graduation cap. She had just finished her business degree, paid for by a scholarship from Richard Harrison's foundation. Carlos stood beside her in his own graduation gown. He had just earned his engineering degree. We did it, Maria, Carlos said, hugging his sister tight. We actually did it. No, Maria said, smiling through happy tears. You did it. You worked so hard. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you, Carlos said. You sacrificed everything for me. You went through hell so I could go to school. I'll never forget that. Maria thought back to that terrible mansion, to Mr. Harrison's cold eyes, to the nights she cried herself to sleep. But she also thought about what came after. The new job, the new apartment, the kindness of Richard Harrison, the strength she discovered inside herself. You know what I learned? Maria said to her brother. I learned that bad things happen to good people sometimes. Really bad things. But those bad things don't have to destroy you. They can make you stronger. They can teach you who you really are. Carlos smiled. You sound like a wise old woman. Maria laughed. I feel like one sometimes. They walked out together to join the graduation ceremony. As Maria crossed the stage to receive her diploma, she saw Richard Harrison sitting in the audience, clapping and smiling. After the ceremony, he came up to her. Congratulations, Maria, he said warmly. I'm so proud of you. Thank you, sir, Maria said, for everything. You changed my life. No, Richard said, shaking his head. You changed your own life. I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it. He handed her an envelope. What's this? Maria asked. Open it tomorrow, Richard said with a mysterious smile. When you're ready for the next chapter of your life. Maria sat in her apartment holding the envelope. Her hands shook slightly as she opened it. Inside was a letter and another document. The letter read, Dear Maria, 2 years ago you survived something terrible. But you didn't just survive, you thrived. You grew. You learned. You became even stronger and kinder than you were before. I believe you're ready now for the next step. Enclosed is a job offer to become the Assistant Director of the Harrison Charitable Foundation. Your salary will be $150,000 per year. Your job will be to help people who are struggling, just like you once struggled. You will give scholarships to poor students. You will fund programs for abused workers. You will help change the system so that what happened to you never happens to anyone else. This is your calling, Maria. I know it is. What do you say? With admiration and respect, Richard Harrison. Maria read the letter 3 times. Then she looked at the job offer document. Assistant Director, $150,000 a year. A chance to help thousands of people. She thought about the scared, desperate girl who had walked into that mansion 2 years ago. The girl who had been broken and tortured and pushed to her limits. That girl was gone now. In her place was a strong, educated, confident woman. A woman who knew her own worth. A woman who would never let anyone make her feel small again. Maria picked up her phone and called Richard Harrison. "Hello, Maria," Richard answered warmly. "Have you read my letter?" "Yes, sir," Maria said, and her voice was strong and clear. "And my answer is yes. When do I start?" She could hear Richard smiling through the phone. "Monday morning," he said. "Welcome to your new life, Maria." Maria sat in a large conference room, leading a meeting with 15 people. They were discussing a new program to help domestic workers who were being abused by their employers. "We need to create a hotline," Maria said confidently. "A safe place where workers can report abuse without fear of losing their jobs. And we need to provide emergency housing and legal support." Everyone around the table nodded and took notes. After the meeting, Maria's assistant brought her the mail. Among the letters was one from Switzerland. Maria's heart skipped a beat. She recognized the handwriting. She opened it carefully. "Dear Maria, I'm writing to let you know that I'm being released from the facility next month. I've been here for 5 years. The doctors say I've made significant progress. I'm not the same person I was. I've learned about empathy, about kindness, about how my childhood trauma turned me into a monster, and how I have to work every day to not be that person anymore. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't even expect it. But I wanted you to know that you saved my life. When you stood up to me that night, when you said no more, you showed me that my power was an illusion. That real strength comes from goodness, not cruelty. I heard about your work with the foundation. I heard that you're helping hundreds of people who were suffering just like you suffered. I'm so proud of you, Maria. Even though I have no right to be, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be a better person. I'll never be as good as you, but I'm going to try. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. Alexander." Maria put down the letter. She felt nothing. No anger. No fear. No hatred. Just peace. She had won. Not by destroying Alexander, but by rising above him. By becoming someone who helped people instead of hurting them. That evening, Maria went home to her nice apartment. Carlos was visiting with his wife and their new baby. "Aunt Maria," Carlos called out when she walked in. "Come meet your nephew." Maria held the tiny baby in her arms and felt overwhelmed with love. This was her life now. A life full of love, purpose, and meaning. She had started as a desperate maid, begging her boss to stop hurting her. But she had ended as a powerful woman who spent every day stopping other bosses from hurting other desperate people. The nightmare was over. The dream had just begun. Sometimes in life, bad people will try to break you. They will use their power to hurt you. They will make you feel small and worthless. But here's the truth. They can only break you if you let them. Maria could have stayed broken. She could have let Mr. Harrison destroy her spirit forever. But she didn't. She stood up. She fought back. She survived. And then she thrived. The pain you go through today can become the strength you need tomorrow. The suffering you experience can teach you empathy for others who suffer. And the darkness you survive can help you bring light to other people's lives. Maria's story reminds us that we are all stronger than we think. That goodness can triumph over cruelty. And that no matter how powerless we feel, we always have the power to say no more. You are not your circumstances. You are not defined by the people who hurt you. You are defined by how you rise after you fall. So stand up. Be strong. Be kind. And never, ever let anyone make you believe you're less than you are. Because you are powerful. You are valuable. You are worthy. Just like Maria. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it and want to see more inspiring stories like this, please subscribe to this channel to support our growth. Comment below and tell us, what lesson did you learn from Maria's story? And what would you have done in her situation? Remember, you are stronger than you think. Never give up. Never let anyone break your spirit. See you in the next story.